Okay, welcome back to part 2 because part 1 crashed my computer. Yeah, you don't want to use that terrain assets from the asset store. Just use these ones. Import package, terrain assets. It'll give you a tree, it'll give you some basic things in here. Hopefully it will decompress this package. There may be something wrong. No, there we go. That was a lot quicker. And I'm just going to import all of this. I get a nice little palm tree. Hopefully I get the pine tree in here as well. I can't remember. But if not, you can download a pine tree from the asset store, I'm sure. You do get some decent textures which you can use. It looks like you only get a palm tree. So that's alright, we'll turn this into a California thing. Alright, so with this terrain, if I click on it over here, I'm going to, well, let's just add some detail to the terrain to start with. Don't need to be in that view. Go up here, zoom way out, and I'll just add some detail out here. This is possibly the worst way to create terrain. You should look into height maps if you want to use the terrain bit in here. This bit here will allow you to import a height map, and it's going to work out way better for you if you do that. Unfortunately, I don't have any height maps prepared. There are some free tools out there that will let you create height maps, but I'm just going to generate it here. Let's go like this. Turn the opacity down, it will be a little bit less rough. So do that. I don't want to go over the road areas. Okay, so now if I zoom into here, I can just turn this right down and go over some of this area here just to make the ground a little less even, I guess, around there. Okay, so I hit play and you can see that I've got some terrain around there. Okay, but it looks pretty dull. This button here will smooth the terrain out if you need to. Generally be alright. Paint texture. I'm going to click edit textures and add a texture. Now this texture 2D is what I want, and I'm going to select an appropriate texture. Now I've actually got a whole bunch, but I'm going to use sand and pebble. That'll do. Sand and pebble. And I'll click that. Now this is for the normal map. I should make another video on that, but I won't at the moment. To make this 30 by 30 and click add. Now that's going to be the default texture on there, and that's way too big, so I'll click that and change that to 15 by 15, and that's a bit better. Okay, so I click apply. But now I can edit textures and add another texture. So let's say I want to add this cliff face here. I'll make that 30 by 30. And what I can do here with this is zoom in. I'll just split that. I might just raise up some of these quite high. Turn the opacity up. Being careful not to. The mountains don't look anything like this in real life, so I'm just going to add some bumps and stuff to them. Okay, now there's a bit of a glitch there, not a problem. And then I'm going to paint. I'm going to use this texture here and I'm going to paint on there. Okay, it will blend it together. If I don't like how big that is, I can turn that up to 40 by 40, and it's a bit better. I can edit texture, so I can add texture and go, well, let's add some grass and add that in, and then if I paint grass on there, if I zoom in, I turn on to this kind of brush here. Oops, I select the grass. See, it blends it together. I'll just turn the opacity down there, and I can blend it together so I get some grass in here and around here, whatever. Okay, and now if I hit play and go and have a look, Okay, so I've got some grass around there. Finally, I've got this one, paint details. I'm going to edit details, add a grass texture, and I'm going to add in this grass here. Now the healthy color, this is tricky. I'm going to make it green, and the dry color, I'll make it like that. It should oscillate between the two. Maximum height, I'm going to make, well, we'll just see what it looks like to start with. So when I paint this on here, it's going to look like this, which is pretty awful, and we don't want it going in there. So I'm going to thin that out. I'm also going to change the max width, min width to half of what they are, and same with that. And I'm going to turn the opacity down. Oops. When I click, it's a lot thinner. I don't want to hold the button down and paint, or it looks awful. I'm just going to kind of click and select areas where I want it to go. I can turn the brush size down if I need to. See if I paint, it's going to look, it looks awful. It just looks like someone has literally painted the grass in. I don't want it to look like, I want it to look like it's been hand placed. So some rocks would do really good here. Now this is going to be kind of, what would you call it? Unshaded. Finally, on here, you can play around with those settings if you want to, import some trees, whatever. Before we do any light mapping, we need to go level and make that static and change the children. We also need to set the terrain to static. It should be by default. The light should not be static. The person should not be static. And we can actually get rid of this main camera because this person has a camera on them, and this should not be static. Okay, so the first person controller, you don't want that to cast a baked shadow. Real-time shadow would be nice, but we're not going to do that. So then we go to window and we go light mapping, and we select the lights. Click on the light. You'll want to change it to baked only. If you've got more than one light, so you've got some like light things up the top there, you can set these for individual lights or select them all and set them all at once. Baked shadows is going to be real-time soft shadows, and just for the first bake I'm going to just set this to 1 and 0, and then I'll do another one afterwards if this works relatively fast. I'm just going to leave it all at the default. Double check that I did set this here, objects level, I did set it to generate light map, or nothing will actually happen. Even though it will render it, nothing will happen. Now looking at where my directional light is, okay, it's coming in from that angle there, so I should get some nice shadows on the street here behind here. I might actually rotate the light so that the mountains don't just shade everything. And then I click bake scene. Now that's going to export to the Beast light mapper. And depending on the complexity of your meshes that you exported from SketchUp, this could take a while or it could be pretty quick. So I'm just going to pause the video while it does it, because there is, oh actually I'm not, it looks like it's almost done, and there's one other thing that I want to do before it's finished rendering. Once this terrain is exported, you can actually just keep working. And so earlier I imported a skybox which we're going to put on the camera. So once that's imported, that skybox is going to go on the camera. Just pause it. Okay, so from here It looks like it's gone down here, baking texture. Probably a good idea to make your terrain much smaller, maybe 500 by 500 or even 200 by 200, because you're not going to need that massive terrain, and it did take a long time for this to work. So anyway, now that I've done that, I'm going to go to my first person controller up here, main camera. And in here, I should have a skybox somewhere. And what I'm going to do, that doesn't look like it's in there, but anyway, down here, standard assets, skyboxes, sunny skybox. I'm just going to drag it. No, that's not there. Okay, edit, render settings, skybox material, here it is. Sunny 1 skybox, drag it into there. There's my Sunny 1 sky texture. I should have changed the ambient light down to nothing as well. And so that should affect the light mapping, make it look a lot better really. Don't really need fog on. If you do fog, change it to a blue, kind of like a sky blue color, very light over here, not sky blue, but more like that, especially if you're kind of doing a dusty thing. It will generally look a lot better than grey if you use a very, very, very light blue. Now this is done, this light map. And this bit could take a while as well, because the terrain is quite big, so I'll just pause this. So the light map is now finished, and you can see here that it's actually put the shadows in there. Let's put the shadows down here very, very subtly. There is this weird kind of effect here where it looks like it looks like the ground is kind of floating. That's because the resolution of the light map on this one, and I'll just bring it up, window light mapping. If I show resolution, you can see the resolution of this light map is much smaller than the resolution of this light map here. Okay, so it's much crisper on that and not so much on the terrain. Now that can be fixed. I'm not going to do it now, and I'm not going to really worry about it by changing the light map size here of the terrain and changing this atlas thing and some other stuff there. But I'm not going to worry too much about that. In fact, I don't think you should use the terrain in Unity because of this issue. From a distance, it does look like it's floating. Doesn't look too bad on these ones because they've got the same bit there. There's no shadow on here, but here it definitely has an issue. So if I just zoom all the way over here, you'll see the shadows on this side, and going back down here. If I go into my world, split that. Okay, I can walk around inside it now. And I shouldn't be able to walk through doors or anything. Oh yeah, that's what I mean by normal. See how I can see him on that side, but the other way around, you can't see him. Okay, so I can walk around in my little world that I've created. Everything looks good except up there because I didn't texture that part, but you get the general idea. Okay, so that's pretty much the entire process. Next video I will have a look at normal mapping and making this look a bit more 3D, and also audio listeners, adding some ambient sound to your scene. Now I could make this a bit better by lights there, maybe a night scene with some spotlights on there going down. That would look pretty cool as well.